thing I'm dealing with mostly now is just aging. And there may be some of you are dealing a bit with that yourselves. Um, I I have difficulty with my memory quite a bit. This goes beyond like, why did I walk in this room and where did I put that? And which is a constant. But I really have difficulty. It interferes with my daily living much of the time. But I still manage to move around it and not let it dominate my life. But it is something. This aging is my body is, like aching and paining where it didn't used to, and all kinds of new things that are happening to me. And took a couple MRIs the other day, and I have to go now back and talk about what we can do about these things in my back that are, bothering. And so, but I'm very fortunate. I feel so very fortunate to have lived the life I've lived and am living. It just seems to all come together to this point now. I was born in, as it said in my bio, in Wheeling, West Virginia, which was quite a thriving steel, coal, glass blowing place. Even had a stogie factory. So it was quite active, and it's on the Ohio River. And so there's a lot of issues with the river too. And my father worked for the telephone company. He climbed telephone poles. And my mother was a homemaker, which all women pretty much were in the 40s. And so he got transferred when I was about 5, and we moved 20 miles up the river into a small town named Beach Bottom. And this was a company town. The steel mill company owned the town, all the houses and the company store. And it was a typical, anything you've read about the company towns, this was it. And but for me, it was pretty nice, and they had a store at the end of our street that sold penny candy. And my mother gave me an allowance of 25 cents a week. And I wouldn't spend it on pop or ice cream because that costs 5 cents each. But the penny candy, I could have candy every day if I managed it right. and it was interesting too, because kitty corner from our house was the school. Across the street was a church. And my father came from a very Catholic family of 12 children. And he didn't go to that church. Occasionally he went to the Catholic church, and even less occasionally he'd take me with him. But my friends went there, and they told me about Sunday school. So I asked if I could go to Sunday school, and they said yes. And so in that Sunday school, they sang the song, Jesus Loves Me. And of course, I hadn't heard that before, and that was very warming. I think that there was this being that loved me. And but I didn't go to that church, and that was just my only contact with it. And I wasn't very sold on religion. If I went to church with my grandmother, it was very serious. You just sat very still, and you were like, or not meditating, praying, praying and sitting still and listening. So it wasn't very pleasant for a child for me, but I went along. And I remember once I was about 8 or 9, an aunt was getting confirmed in the church, and it was down in Wheeling. And so we all went down there and went to this church, and it was really packed with people. And she was not the only one getting confirmed. There was a whole lot of people, and there was this bishop, I guess, was there. And I remember at one point we all got in line and we went and kissed his ring. And I thought, whoa, why would you do that? That's not clean. And then we sat back down, and people were on their kneeling benches, and in prayer position, and the priest went around the room, and he had a incense burner thing, and he was going like this, throwing the incense. Some of you are shaking, you've been there, shaking, and there was incense. I mean, it was so thick that I thought, and people were so still, I thought that they may not be alive. And so I got in my purse and I got my handkerchief and breathed through my handkerchief, so maybe I wouldn't die. So after a while, people kind of stopped and got up, and I was, oh, so relieved. Nobody died. And so my connection with religion was not tight at all. But when I got out of school, went to college, I decided I wanted to find something spiritual, because I was kind of spiritually connected. I'd had a nice experience in that little town once, and in the church, behind the church, there was a hill, and on the hill there were violets growing, and in the spring they all came out. If you've ever lived in an area like that, you know the spring brings the violets, and we'd go back there and pick them. So one spring day I decided to go back and pick violets, and I remember just going there to the violet patch and just sitting down and just being present in that violet patch, smelling the smells, feeling there was sun out on my body, warming my body, and just being there, very present. It was like a meditation. And it was such a pleasant experience that I remembered it all my life till now. And but it didn't occur again. I had some other experiences with Christian church that were kind of strange to me. But anyway, when I went to college, I decided, well, I really want to have some kind of a deeper experience. And how can I get that? Well, the only thing I knew was the church. So I did everything the church had to offer, open-minded, I think, and didn't see anything there. Nothing struck me as something good to hang on to. And so after college, my cousin came from Michigan, and a roommate of mine and I decided to drive out to California, see what's going on out there. And this was 1964. So you kind of know what was going on up there. But anyway, I didn't. On the way out there, I remember we got a magazine, Post or Life, one of those magazines, and there was an article by Timothy Leary. And he wrote about the psychedelic experience. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Sounds pretty spiritual. I don't know if I used that word then. It sounds really spiritual. That sounds interesting. So when I got out to California, bunches of different experiences, and ending up one day in Big Sur camping out, and happened to meet somebody who said that they had taken LSD more than once. And if I'd like to take it, that they would help me take it. I thought, okay, I will. So I did. And so that led to us living together in a flat on Fell Street with two other couples and one single man. And we would take regular LSD trips. And we didn't fool around. We didn't, like try to laugh and play. We were serious. We put mattresses on the floor. We picked the music we wanted. And then after a while, we had this book called The Psychedelic Experience, which would lead one through a trip. And we do it on Friday night so that I could get it back together enough on Monday to go to work. And so, but on these trips, I did experience what I call the oneness of all beings and the clear light, which was what I think I'd been looking for, my whole childhood up to then. And so I was very present, all those things they used to say, I could hardly speak a lot of times because the language was gone, go with the flow. Yeah, got that. easy does it, all those little things, far out. Yeah, that was a good one. To talk about how I felt, because there weren't any words really. And so getting married, having a child kind of ended all that experimentation. And then living with alcoholism, and that was very bothersome to me. So I ended up going to a 12-step program of Al-Anon to help myself with that, and which was very effective. And so I really, really liked that and used that program for many years. And then I eventually went back to school and got a master's in mental health counseling. And then, of course, along the way, I had counselors, and I had a teacher of Adlerian psychology who was also my therapist. And as I speak, this man is taking his last breaths in Bellingham, Washington. Yeah. May he be at ease. And the thing that I remember from him is that he asked me if I could give a good feeling to others. I didn't quite understand what he meant. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, can you just kind of look in somebody's eyes and say hello? Like, I'm happy to see you. Yeah, I can do that. And so that just became a habit that just, is so fulfilling to be able to look at somebody and say hello and see that they enjoyed receiving that. And so went on from there. And I didn't find Buddhism until after the turn of the century. And I had gone to a couple of Zen meetings, but meditating with the eyes open was not that pleasant to me. And I had a client once in private practice that talked about this place, and I said, where is that? And here it is, right in Redwood City, the town I live in, Insight Meditation Center. And so I went there, and as soon as I was in there, I just knew that this was home for me. It's so welcoming and so warm. And the teacher was wonderful, and there was more than one teacher, but primarily it was Gil Fronsdal. Then you may have read some of his work. And so not too long after that, I started going to retreats and doing pretty much a retreat every year. And haven't decided where I'm going to go do a retreat this year yet. But it's been a whole wonderful thing. And the Four Noble Truths, I mean, what could there be a better way to live life than to do that of the Eightfold Path? I mean, and as I continue on in my life, I see more and more areas where it's true, that my suffering comes from my desires and my aversions. My desires do cause me suffering. And as I go on, I see in even more nuanced forms how the suffering permeates and how it's connected to different things that I had no idea it was connected to. And so the Eightfold Path, I loosely, I think, follow it, but there are a couple that really have meaning for me. And one is right understanding or right intention. I think it's on right thoughts. Instead of right thoughts, it's right intention, which really makes sense to me. And I have the intention to do things. Obviously, I'm not going to do what I would hope every time. But I know I have confidence. It makes me have confidence to know I have right intention. And then the other one that's I work on all the time and will continue is right speech. Because there's always room for improvement for me. And so I just think it's the most wonderful path for living that I have ever encountered. And I hope to practice it till my last breath. And I'm so happy to have you on my path, helping me and encouraging me and loving me. Thank you so much. And I'd really like to hear from you. I'd like to hear, how you view this path we're on and what's stood out to you. And, I want to hear from you.